Hi, my name's Andy. So today I'm going to be answering your questions about stress and anxiety and how they relate to the practice of mindfulness. Let's dive in. So this first question comes from Min, and they ask, will meditation help with my anxiety? Anxiety, fear, is just part of being human. Sometimes it's even helpful. We kind of need these range of human emotions in our life. It's just when they become so persistent that they start to overwhelm us, then it becomes a problem. So it's more about how can we change our relationship with anxiety. It's not how do we get rid of it. And perhaps even get to a point where we start to embrace it as part of training the mind, as part of the practice of mindfulness. We're training in awareness. Training in awareness means becoming more aware of what's happening in our mind. Thoughts, feelings, emotions. We start to notice the patterns. We start to notice the habitual patterns. And we start to notice our reactions to particular things. So if you think about how that applies to anxiety, almost inevitably, when we start to feel anxious or when we start to experience anxious thoughts in our mind, we get a feeling that comes with that in the body. The mind then recognizes those signals as anxious signals. So it tends to ramp up the thinking. Oh, I feel really kind of anxious about something. And often, if you're someone who experiences anxiety on a regular basis, it gets to a point where it doesn't even have to be about anything. You can just start feeling anxious about feeling anxious. That loop can be so strong that it feels impossible. That even meditation isn't going to make a difference. And that's where we really kind of have to show up on a regular basis, if we can, on a daily basis. And over time, you'll start to see that sort of cycle break down where you're better able to step out of the thinking mind and be more present with whatever you're doing at that particular time. So this next person asks, what do I do if I'm experiencing increased anxiety during the meditation itself? One thing that people have often said to me is, meditation makes me feel anxious. Meditation makes me feel angry. Meditation makes me feel sad. The meditation doesn't make us do anything. All we are doing in meditation is sitting down and observing what is already happening in the mind. We're not making the mind do something. We're not trying to make the mind do something. It's really important to recognize that. So when we sit down and we experience anxiety, it's probably not that the meditation has made you feel anxious. It's that there was an undercurrent of anxiety. In taking yourself away from all the busyness and the distractions in life, you're actually seeing that clearly. You're feeling it. It's actually a really good thing. We're becoming aware of it. And we're creating a space where anxiety can be present without being resisted and without being engaged too much. So I think that's one aspect of it to recognize. The other is thinking about thinking or thinking about the meditation. Within the meditation, there's nowhere really for the anxiety to go. So if we are habitually anxious in our life, we are so conditioned to that behavior. It's almost like we have to find an outlet for that. So we start feeling anxious about the meditation. We start experiencing doubts about the meditation. I don't know why, it's really tempting to think that somehow those thoughts are more real or more important than the thought of, oh, I wonder what I'm going to do tomorrow, like a planning thought. And so the planning thought, we see it, we acknowledge it, oh yeah, that's thinking, we let it go. But the thought, oh, am I doing this right? Oh, I wonder, for some reason we take it more seriously. So it's really important. It doesn't matter the type of thought, the flavor of thought. Thinking is thinking during meditation. We see it, we acknowledge it, we let it go, and we come back to our object of focus. So this next question comes from John Dell. What's your best advice for preparing before a big event? So normally when there's a big event, we get ahead of ourselves. We start thinking about it, often days, even weeks in advance, and we build it up in our minds until eventually we feel so overwhelmed by it. We just don't know how to kind of go into that situation. If there's an opportunity, even right before it, to step out of that thinking, to let go of all the thinking around it, our expectations, our fears, our hopes, whatever it might be, and instead just be present, it has such an interesting kind of impact on both the body and the mind. The body tends to let go of a lot of the tension. The mind tends to let go of a lot of the anxiety, a lot of the stress. So I would say if you find yourself in one of these situations, rather than looking for a particular meditation, I would say go back to basics. I would go back to day one. No kind of layers of technique to learn, where it feels very easy, where you can just sit down, easily let go of what's going on in the mind and just be more present in the body. For me, that's the best bit of advice I can give. So this next question comes from Deep Thee. So they ask, how do you differentiate between stress and anxiety? Because they're trying to work out which course within the app would be best for them. At a really big level, we can say anxiety is one type of stress. It's one particular flavor of stress. Really, if you think about stress, it's all of those things that we experience in life which perhaps kind of excite the body, either in a positive way or a negative way. So it's not that stress is necessarily kind of bad across the board. We will all experience stress in our life at times. Thankfully, there are lots of different courses within the app. So we have a stress course, we have an anxiety course. I would say the way of deciding which is best for you, anxiety course focuses very specifically on anxiety. What I really like about the anxiety course is it teaches a technique of noting. And noting you can apply really easily to lots of other kind of aspects of life and difficult emotions as well. If it feels a bit more difficult to decide kind of what is it, and sometimes anxiety, sometimes it's irritability, sometimes it's sadness, then I'd lean towards the stress pack. And what I like about the stress pack is it introduces visualization. So if that's something that sort of feels good to you and something you'd like to try, then maybe sort of lean towards that. So the idea of kind of all these different courses is that you have something that feels that it really kind of relates to you and where you are right now, and there's nothing stopping you as well from trying both. Thanks so much for watching today. So for more help on this topic, check out the Managing Anxiety pack in the app. And if you've got any more questions for me at all, feel free to write in to askandy@headspace.com. And I'll do my very best to answer them in a future episode. See you again soon.